My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
AM radio by Everclear. It has been said by many a talk radio artist that you can't teach radio from a textbook. Well, that's sort of true, because it was certainly true as far as I was concerned until Valerie Geller started writing books about radio. Who's Valerie Geller? I don't even know where to begin. Valerie Geller is a legend when it comes to broadcasting. One of the most accomplished radio programmers of all time, having been program director for some of the great radio stations in America, like WABC in New York, KFI in Los Angeles, KOA in Denver. But you could actually argue that her most significant contributions to the world of broadcasting have come not as a programmer or a broadcaster, but as an internationally renowned broadcast and podcast training consultant. She's the president of Geller Media International and a best-selling author whose books are required reading in any broadcasting class. And now she's got a new book, or a new edition of a book that has a lot of people talking. The book is called Beyond Powerful Radio, an audio communicator's guide to the digital world. Valerie, we've known each other a long time, but I think this might be the first opportunity that I've had to interview you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Other Side of Midnight, Frank. It's just a pleasure to be on with you. And I need to correct you. You can't teach talent. Talent is inborn, but what you can teach is the craft and technique of how to engage audiences, how to present more powerfully, how to become a better storyteller, how to develop your deep listening skills so that you then become a more powerful communicator. And most importantly, the book, this latest book, Beyond Powerful Radio, and all the books I've written, and quite frankly, all the work I do, it's just based on three things. Tell the truth, make it matter, never be boring. That's it. That's the whole premise of all the work. And then, you get 500 pages on how to do that.
Well said, and I want to boil down some of those tips, not only for people like me that do this on a daily basis, but people that may be trying to expand into the podcast sphere, or who may just have a Facebook page that they're doing regular lives with, because it seems like these days, and I think you kind of make this point in your book, everyone's a broadcaster. It's not necessarily the domain of professionals anymore. Before we go there, Valerie, tell people a little bit about your life journey and your professional journey. How did you get into broadcasting? What made you aspire to broadcasting as a career?
Well, first of all, like you, I grew up loving radio, the magic of radio, the imagination medium. I called my first talk show when I was 7 years old. The talk show host, I grew up in LA, and the talk show host was a guy called Joe Pine, and he had done a show on how children should be seen and not heard, and you should never take them to restaurants because they made noise and they disrupted everything for all the diners. And I got so upset hearing that as a child that I picked up the phone, I called the talk show, and I said, look, when you're a little kid, you're told, when to go to bed, what to eat, everything in your life is dictated to you, what to wear, when to go to school. The only real freedom you have as a child is to make noise. So just leave us alone and let us make noise. And we have every right in the world to go to restaurants. And he said, kid, you can call my show anytime. So I became like one of those aggravating little kid callers on a talk show in LA. And that started at the bug bit. And I ended up studying journalism. I ended up working as a producer and a reporter and, a newscaster and a talk show host. And ultimately, finally, decided, just like a lot of actors, would rather direct, I found it so much more satisfying to direct and to find and develop people and to kind of orchestrate, be the orchestra leader rather than somebody who is just singing in the band. So for me, management was it. And then after WABC, I had the opportunity to go to Europe and train people because I'd been writing articles about what worked and what didn't. Back when I got into radio, there weren't any books. The way you learned, and you remember these days, Frank, the way you learned was you tried things, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it failed. When it worked, everybody was thrilled. When it failed, you often got fired and had to go to another place and get a different kind of job. So I really wanted to save people 10 years, and so what I did was I put all the things that worked and all the things from experts that I respected, their ideas that worked, and we put it in a book. And pretty much all of the stations, I now work with over 500 television and radio stations throughout the world, and now podcasters. And everywhere that they use these methods, they grow audience. And to your point, it's not just Facebook Live, but it's also, if you have to get up and give a wedding toast, or public speaking is something that, you're nervous about. If you use this technique, focus, engage, opinion, position, storytelling, how does it matter? How is it relevant? How do you care? How can you make the audience care? What are the stories? Is there any humor in this? What are the visuals? Using the tenets of how to become a powerful communicator. If you use these techniques, whether you're teaching in a class, whether you're a lawyer and you're finding, you're on the political circuit now, by the way, we're so proud of you, Frank.
Thank
you. We are
Valerie.
so proud of
very,
you.
Very kind.
Right. If you don't know Frank in any other way than just as a talk show host, this man cares about his country. He cares about people. He has a heart of gold. And I have known Frank for many, many years, since you were almost a child. And I just want to say on behalf of myself and all of those of us that worked with you and adored you and just respect you professionally, we're so proud of the way you're expanding and how you want to give back in your life in public service. And we're just very proud of you.
You're very kind. You're making me blush, Valerie. Thank you. 31 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. Very, very pleased to be talking with Valerie Geller. Her new book is Beyond Powerful Radio, an audio communicator's guide to the digital world. You can get it on Amazon. You could also go to Valerie's website, Geller Media. Valerie, having been at WABC in what I consider to be one of the most interesting times in that radio station's history, a time when Bob Grant was there and Jay Diamond and Lynn Samuels and all sorts of other interesting characters, share with us one anecdote that's kind of fun or interesting from those days of spearheading WABC.
Well, it really was an interesting time. And I think that when you're in the middle of it, you don't always understand that you're almost at a point of where history is happening. And I think that was a time that will never be again. The L.P. Hartley quote, "The past is a different country and we don't live there anymore." And I think we're in that space. Having the opportunity to put Joy Behar on the air, having the opportunity to work with Bob Grant, all you guys, Lynn Samuels, I think Rush Limbaugh, Jay Diamond, Curtis, Lewa, all these people who were amazingly talented. And a lot of what is in Beyond Powerful Radio were some of the tenets of those brilliant storytellers. And I learned a lot from working with them. And the most important thing that I learned is that if you have a sense of humor, you can get through anything. And every single person we had on the air had a wicked and delicious sense of humor. And that was a thing that was the main thread. The other thing that every single star on the radio or every single successful person who communicates for a living has around the world, there's a common thread. And the main thing that they all share is this. Every great talent, even if you've never met them, you feel you know them from listening to them on the air. And that would happen every day with Rush Limbaugh and Bob Grant and Lynn. People would come up to them every day and say, I listen to you. I've never met you, but I feel like I could go have a cup of coffee with you or go have a beer with you. And that's the hallmark of a star, when you feel you know them even if you've never met them. And so that's the goal. And then when I was working in England at the BBC, I saw a piece of research, and it rang so true with me, and it became my dream and my goal for WABC and also for every single station I work with now. And it was a guy called Terry Wogan who recently passed away. But the research was, one of the respondents wrote, when Terry goes on holiday, that's when my family and I book our vacation, because we don't want to be in England when Terry's not on the air. And I thought, okay, that's the Mount Everest of research quotes. That's my goal for everybody we work with. And again, to keep and grow audience, to engage listeners, to storytell powerfully, those are really the goals. And really to be purposeful, to know what you want to say. And one of the things that I think every great broadcaster does, and every great communicator, the minute they get in front of the mic, there's a sense of, here's why you need to listen, and you've got to hear this. And there's an excitement and a passion. You certainly have it. And all of the talented broadcasters and communicators, great teachers have this. You can't wait for their class, but it's the sense of humor and the feeling that you know them. And I think those two things are really core. And the people that we worked with at WABC all embodied that.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for a light and fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of graham cookies, caramel pearls, and dark chocolate, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 light and fit remix varieties with craveable flavors and up to 120 calories and 10 grams of protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
I think the audience is certainly getting an understanding of why you've been able to do so well in broadcasting. Not only do you just sound so good, but you clearly have it all figured out in terms of what makes compelling content. If you're just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano talking with Valerie Geller. So, Valerie, you spent a long time training broadcasters around the world, from, as you said, WABC to the BBC. What inspired you at first to write that first edition of Beyond Powerful Radio? And what's changed the most in Beyond Powerful Radio, an audio communicator's guide to the digital world, since the first edition?
Okay, the first edition, which came out in the 90s, it actually had a different title. It was called Creating Powerful Radio. But now we've gone beyond radio to podcasting and digital world, so it's beyond, We've moved so beyond. So we changed the title in this new edition because it really is a whole new world. What's different now is that we are in a technological shift, the likes of which the world has never seen. Once upon a time, as you well know in radio, just as in the film business and in the music business, there were gatekeepers, and it's true in publishing as well. There were people who decided if you could work and they would hire you and you could make a lot of money. And if you were one of the chosen few, the golden that got the jobs, and lots of people didn't get the jobs. It's almost like acting, you had to be chosen, and there weren't a lot of jobs. And suddenly with the digital world, it's just like when cameras became available, when everybody could have a Polaroid camera, then everybody became a photographer. Not everybody became a good photographer, but everybody could take pictures. You didn't have to go to a professional studio and have portraits of your kids made. You could take your own pictures. And the same was true when electric guitars became available. Now you could be in a garage band. You could be like the Beatles. You could play in a band. And so it's really about the gatekeepers are gone. So not everybody is going to be able to break through with a podcast or an online radio station, but you're going to be able to find a niche audience. And so now things that maybe wouldn't be broadcast over the air because they might be too specific or too niche. Now, for example, if you have an overweight aging cat, you can do a podcast and find a global audience for that overweight aging cat, and people with fat cats all over the world can learn how to keep your cat alive. And that might be too specific for a radio show because that's broadcasting. Broadcasting is broad audience, but for a very narrow audience that can be quite a significant audience, and you can find your people.
So
you have the
that's the
opportunity
difference,
now.
Really, is broadcasting versus narrowcasting. The biggest
right, and then we have
difference.
social media.
Sure.
Social media has been the game changer of all time, where you can just lightning fast get any piece of information out there. And the challenge now is vetting it, what is true, making sure in journalism what you are reading and hearing and seeing is actually vetted and accurate, because there's so much information out there that is not 100% truthful. And so people have to be extremely vigilant. Check your sources, double check pictures, really make sure before you spread stuff around that it's really true.
What is the biggest mistake you made earlier in your career that turned out to be an invaluable lesson? I know you have not learned this many lessons without making a couple of mistakes. Give me one example.
I think that whenever you override your instinct with logic, you go wrong. When your gut is telling you something, but logically it doesn't make sense, and you override that instinct with, no, that can't be right. I'm going to go ahead and do the logical thing, the right thing. I think those are the times when I've really gone wrong with hiring people that, on paper they looked really good, but I just had a feeling it wasn't right and I couldn't put a finger on it, or, just a sense of decisions that I felt were not right. And, it's interesting. When I first became a consultant and a trainer, a really smart person said to me, there's what's right, there's what's wrong, and then there's what is. Try to do what's right. Try to avoid what's wrong. But if you don't work with what is, you're not going to be successful. Don't have magical thinking. It's good to be hopeful, but be practical and try to have your feet on the ground and really assess situations as they are, and then find your solutions to those problems and situations as they go. And those were all the areas where I made my mistakes, you know?
Your book introduces the PRISM method for storytelling. Walk us through that and maybe share an example of how it turned a good story into a great one.
Okay. I'll give you an example. Prism is just basically, you know, when you hold a crystal, like one of those, you know, glass crystal, like you see them in the chandelier, you hold it up to the window and it makes a rainbow on the wall, those prisms. And then if you turn the crystal, the rainbow changes. You know, it's a completely different rainbow. Same sunshine, same piece of glass, but completely different rainbow. It's a different perspective. Prism is just looking at a story from many, many perspectives until you find one that's really super powerful. And one of the examples we put in the book, what actually came from BBC, and part of what we really teach in the book, and I write a lot about this, is that finding subjects and topics is really creative process. It's the same thing all artists do. You observe life, you filter what you see through your own creative process, and you put it back out for other people. That's what songwriters do, great storytellers do it, and great talk show hosts and broadcasters do it, and news reporters. So using that method of, you know, something that you've overheard or seen or observed, we had a reporter who was in a shop. And while she was in the shop, she overheard the owner of the shop saying, "We are going to close early." And so she asked the woman, "Why are you closing early?" She said, "Well, it's a story. It turns out the woman was going to the airport with her daughter to pick up her twin brother who she hadn't seen in 45 years.
Whoa.
The story was the twins were separated when they were babies. The father took the little boy to America, and the mother took the daughter to England, and they never saw each other again. And the little girl in England had a great upbringing. The mother remarried. They had a terrific childhood, and she turned out great and had her own daughter. Meanwhile, the little boy, the father took the kid to Wisconsin. He was a raging alcoholic. He never had 1 year in one school. The father was married 6 times, and sometimes they lived in the car when they didn't have anywhere to live. And so the boy had a really rough upbringing. Well, at age 45, he had just gotten married for the first time and had a baby. So the brother, the wife, and the new baby were all on the plane, and they were running to the airport to see the brother for the first time in 45 years. So in the car, the reporter is going through the possibilities using Prism. Okay, her first Prism idea is, well, is it true when you're a twin and you're separated at birth, do you always kind of feel empty, you know, like you're not quite whole, like you're missing a piece of yourself? And that's definitely one angle. The other angle was the daughter had found her uncle doing a school project. And, you know, you can find anybody on the internet in 4 days if you're really looking for them. And that's yet another angle. Another angle is if you had a really crappy upbringing and you've never seen love and a healthy relationship, you've never seen love modeled, how can you become a wonderful husband and father if you've never seen it? How do you learn how to do that? So there were all these angles. But what went on the air, was completely different. What went on the air was 6-month-old Marie is sitting on on the knee of her Aunt Helen. She is exactly the age that her father and her aunt were when they were separated in India 45 years ago. That's the lead she used.
Wow.
So it PRISM means look at it from all sides. We have a mutual colleague, Lee Harris, who's now running News Nation, who was at 1010 Wins for years.
And we're on WGN now in Chicago, thanks to Lee Harris, who's an amazing guy.
Oh, great. Yeah, WGN, great station in Chicago. I'm reaching out to all of our people who are listening in Chicago, absolutely. But Lee Harris, who really would always talk about, look at, and in fact, in the book, there are 5 scripts that Lee did where he uses this PRISM multiple version method in the news writing, where you take one story and you look at it from 5 angles. So if he was doing a story on a blizzard, the first one is going in the subway and interviewing a homeless person. The second one is doing the traffic report. The third one is, how much time it takes to get from point A to point B. PRISMing the story so that you have it from all angles. And it's a very exciting way to tell a story, especially if you're working with material that might not change. Parents use it instinctively when they tell stories to their kids. They'll tell the same story 100 times, but they'll change it a little bit each time so that the kids don't get bored. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
PRISM is such a great method.
I love that. That's really good. It really just is so interesting. So I alluded right before you came on that every day I meet someone that has a podcast, and it's very difficult for me to tell when they're describing the podcast or asking me to be a guest or something along those lines, or trying to get me to listen, whether they have 3 listeners or 3 million listeners. There's so many podcasts out there. How does someone that wants to start a podcast or take their podcast to the next level, how do they stand out in such a crowded space?
Okay, just like any business, and I think you have to decide, are you going to be a hobbyist or you really want to do this as something that you would like to try as an ongoing passion project that you would like to develop into something that can be a business and make money and expand your ideas and your stories and your subject base. So you have to make a decision. Some podcasts are like a Netflix series. You drop a series of 8 podcasts and it's on a specific thing. I just worked with a guy who has, a series of 8 podcasts about educating kids with autism, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's it. And I think you can decide if you want to drop a series or if you want to do a daily podcast, a weekly podcast. YouTube is such a wonderful place to put a podcast because people can then use keywords and find their audience. And so if you're going to do a podcast, definitely post it on YouTube as well as other social media. But like any business, it's product, permanence, promotion. First and foremost, what do you want to say? Who do you want to talk to? Why do you want to do it? Okay? And then it's follow what we call the powerful communicator principles. Tell the truth, make it matter, never be boring. What are you going to do with the sheer power of your personality and your curiosity and your humor and who you are as a human being? What do you have to uniquely offering an audience with this podcast? What are your goals with the podcast? So those are the things to look at first. Product, permanence, promotion, doing it consistently over time and then letting people know you're doing it. And again, social media is a good way to do it. If you want to grow your podcast, one of the best ways is to actually get on as a guest on other people's podcasts who have an audience. Mm-hmm. Get on a podcast and they'll be on your podcast, and then you can social media out and capture each other's audiences and develop awareness that way. And there's lots and lots of ways. The other thing is Facebook ads. I see Facebook ads that are very, very effective for podcasts based on topic. But before you even begin, for about $700, you can buy all the equipment. So you can buy, and this is not a commercial for Rode, they're just one of the companies that make the boards, but for $700 you can get it, the box, the equipment, and if you have a laptop or a phone, you can totally have everything you need to podcast. So then it becomes, what do you want to say? What are your goals with the podcast, and what do you want to do with it? The next thing is, if you have a specific podcast that goes to a specific audience, do you need a big audience? That it's not hard to get a big audience, but sometimes it's hard to get the audience you want. Mm-hmm. So I think working to get the audience you want is very, very important. And then sponsors become interested. When you hit that, between 5,000 and 10,000 listeners, that's when sponsors begin to get interested.
Valerie, before we run out of time here, and my only regret is not inviting you on for a full hour, and I hope maybe we could do a part 2 next week because I have a lot more questions for you.
Anytime, and again, I can't even say how proud we are of you, Frank. Just
thank
really.
you, Valerie. Let me squeeze in one last question before we run out of time here, though. It has to do with AI and the future of broadcasting. The book's new chapter on artificial intelligence sounds pretty fascinating. Do you see AI as a creative tool for broadcasters or something that could potentially replace some roles in the industry?
It's both. You've hit the nail on the head, Frank. It is absolutely both things. If you do a time and temperature reading liner cards and you're sort of fake and phony on the air, and there's nothing specific or distinctive about your show, and you're a disc jockey, you know what? You're replaceable by AI. There are certain things that AI does marvelously. In Los Angeles during the fires, AI gave the alerts, and it was faster than any human could certainly do it. Certainly in medicine, they're finding that the artificial intelligence, doctors reading an X-ray get about 84 to 87% of anomalies in an X-ray. The AI gets 94%. So, there are things AI does better than people. And if we are smart, it's like fire or nuclear power. You can use it for good, or you can use it, it can burn you, or it can warm you. So we can use AI like you would use an intern to do the grunt work, but just like an intern, you have to kind of oversee it and check everything it does because it can really make bad mistakes. But it can also collate and quickly amass a lot of information. I was just talking to a guy who has a company, and he said at their quarterly board meetings, they used to have a staff of 16 people put together their reports, and now AI did it in 1 hour, the work of 16 people.
Wow.
So, it's here to stay. If you are smart, whether you're a broadcaster or, quite frankly, in any other profession, learn artificial intelligence, learn how to use it, learn, ChatGPT, learn how to use it so that it benefits you. And if it can make our lives easier and faster, and it can get the grunt work done quicker and give us more time to do the creative stuff and the things that we like to do, then it can be a very good thing. But the jury is still out.
Valerie Geller, you could check out her website, gellermedia.com, and definitely check out the book, Beyond Powerful Radio, an audio communicator's guide to the digital world. Valerie, love to have you back next week, and we can have even more of a conversation on this subject.
Frank, anytime. For you, anytime.
I really appreciate it, and I appreciate it, especially when that time is in the wee hours of the morning. So
thank you. Other Side of Midnight. I'm thrilled to be on. I'm a night bird, and so I really appreciate it. Yeah. And I appreciate people who are listening in the wee hours, because night people are very special.
Thank you, Valerie Geller. If you want to comment on any portion of our conversation, give me a call, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.